What's up, YouTube? It's been a while, but I'm finally back with my next tutorial on R. Going to be looking at polar/pizza charts, whatever you want to call them. We're going to be looking at NBA and Premier League data today, but we're going to be using football reference for the football or soccer data, so you can pretty much do any player you would like. But yeah, I know I was going to look into doing a basics in R tutorial. I'm kind of putting that off until the end of my semester. I just want to make sure I put some more time into that and make sure it's as good as it can be for now, and then hopefully kind of build that into its own series, maybe a couple basics tutorials. So I'm definitely going to look to do that sometime soon. But today we're going to be looking at these two charts that you can see right now, and we're going to create both of them. So let's switch over to R. I'm going to focus on the soccer one first. First of all, this code will be on GitHub. I'll link it all below. These are the packages we're going to load. If you don't have them installed, just simply install them. I'm pretty sure I did that in my first tutorial. Pretty easy to figure out too. But yeah, and then we're going to be using worldfootballR, which is one of the best packages out there. I'll link below the creator. He's a great guy. His GitHub to it and all of his work. So this is a line you would use to install it, and then I already installed it for time purposes. Load that up. Should load pretty quickly. There we go. So first we're gonna look at the soccer data. So there's a function, football player scouting report, that's part of the worldfootballR package. It's fantastic. But what you're gonna need to do is find the web page to the player you want to look at. So you kind of just have to type in whatever player. So say I wanted to do Pulisic, just type it in, go to his page. But we're going to be looking at Mason Mount today. Chelsea and England star. Not a Chelsea, I am a Chelsea fan, but one of my favorite players. But yeah, so all you got to do is copy and paste his URL, and then drop it into the first position of the function. Sorry. So parentheses, paste, and then just include this at the end. Some players don't need it, some do, so I just keep it in just to make sure. But we're going to then run this line, and we're going to create, it will scrape that page. Fantastic function. Makes it so much easier. So this will create a data frame of all of his percentile rankings from standard, passing, pass types. Pretty much this whole page, it scrapes. Oh, it actually scrapes this whole page. So yeah, this is what it scrapes. So it's a lot of data. So what we're gonna do next is, this is a key part. So totally customizable, but this line of code, you will be able to pick which rows of the data frame you want to use. So as you can see, I picked 9, 24, 10. We'll look at it closely. So in my idea for my polars, I want to do 4 attacking metrics, 4 possession metrics, and 4 defensive metrics. You can pick whatever you want pretty much. So you can do 5, 2, 1, or ideally I would say an even amount or somewhat even amount for each group looks best visually. But an important thing to do is to pick them in an order that you want to display it. So you want to display the attacking ones in a certain order. So make sure to pick those. So the row is actually the second number. It formats a little bit weird. So this is a 9th row. That's the first one I picked, non-penalty expected goals. Then I picked 24, which is non-penalty expected goals per shot. So basically you can scroll through here. So many stats. It can get a little overwhelming, but once you get a hang of it, you can pick what you want. Just to make sure, again, pick it in the order you want to visually display around. So here we go. This is what I did. It goes from the first one all the way. It goes clockwise. So we will run this line. Oh, sorry, this is wrong. So you want to call the data frame, and then this little close bracket runs through that data frame and picks those rows, and we will throw that back into a new data frame called player data frame. And then this is an important part of why we chose to pick it in the order we want to display it visually, we're going to create a column index. So here's the new data frame we have, much easier to look at. But we want to numerically order these 1 through 12 because the code that the function for the plot we want to use, the ggplot, to make sure it correctly plots in the same order. We just want to run it through an index. So we'll tell ggplot to plot it through an index, which I will get to later. So that's why it's very important that you pick the values in the order that you want to plot it. So creating this index will do this. So I will run it. Now, as you can see, now we have an index 1 through 12. So as you can see, the first one on the chart will be non-penalty expected goals and so forth. So that's why it's very important that you pick it in the order you want to visualize it, because the index will automatically populate through the length of the data set. And then also it's important, like I said, to pick it in an order. So this little mutate function, we're going to create a new column called type. And this is how we're going to color each group. So we're going to call the data frame and then pipe it and then mutate. So type, the new column called type, is equal to case when. So this case when function will look through this player data frame. So the first one we're doing is, so when the index is 1 through 4, we will create a value called attacking for each row. And then it'll look through index, which is 5 through 8. It will label possession and then defending for 9 through 12. So we'll run this chunk, little code. So there we go. So index 1 through 4, it's a very useful function. So now it's all attacking. 5 through 8 is possession. 9 through 12 is defending. So if you were to use less or more than 12, say use 9, 3 for each, you do here it'd be 1 through 3 is attacking, or say you had 4 for attacking, still be 1 for 4. So you just got to figure it out numerically. We'll take a little play around with it a little bit. But yeah, it's that simple with the packages. Once again, shout out to Jason. I'll link his Twitter, like I said, below. This package is amazing for football data. So this little chunk or little block of code is what I don't, to be honest, I don't 100% understand what it does completely, but basically what it's going to do is rotate and wrap the text around the plot. So it's not just a horizontally aligned text. So visually it makes it look much more pleasing. Basically what it does is, here we look at the length of the data set. So we know we have 12 rows, and then from there it calculates the angles of each text for each position. All you have to do, and all I do, is just run this code. Of course. Okay, here we go. The error was I was calling the wrong data set. I believe I copied this from the basketball one. So just run this. It should work, and I'll show you later where that comes into play in the ggplot. So yeah, now we have all our data, player data frame right here. Let's get into plotting. So the first thing I want to do is, I made this easier. So here we're going to be using 3 colors in ours, and what I did was just made them their own object. So the first color is the blue color, which is very close as we could get to Chelsea's color. Just run these gray and gold. You could obviously change these to whatever team scheme you want to be. And then these will be called down in the scale film manual, which I will get to. But the first thing we want to do is ggplot, call the plotting function, data equals player data frame, our data frame. And then we want to do our mapping AES. So what this does is tells the plot which variables to use, what to label it as, what to fill the colors. So the x-axis, we want the statistic to be on the x-axis, so non-penalty expected goals, expected assists, so on. And we want to order it by index. So this is what the reordering does. And that's why we created the index. So we want to make sure it is labeled in the order that we want. So then the Y is a percentile ranking that's in the data frame. We're going to label it percentile ranking, so that's why we can get eventually these labels. And then fill equals type, and that's where we created the attacking, possession, and defending type variables. So what we're going to do here is just then call geomebar data set. The width of the bars, you can play around with that. The color of the bars, I use old lace, which is this yellowish color, and then stat equals identity. Just got to make sure that's in there. I'm running geomebar. So running just this so far will get us this. So what we're going to do next is actually what makes the polar plot a circle. So if you didn't know, polar plots are just bar charts wrapped around the polar location of 0. And this is what the coordinate polar. So we'll add that. There you go. So very far from where we're going to get to, but that's how you started out with. So it's already been filled by type. So the next thing we're going to do is draw the bars behind the actual statistic bar charts. And we're going to fill it. So here we go. We're going to add a geomebar y equals 100. So it goes all the way to the end of the bar. Fill equals type. So we're going to color it by the same colors that are in the bar charts that display the percentile rankings. And then this alpha equals 0.5 is very important because that's the transparency of the background bars. So we wanted about half. So it'll be, you can determine the difference from the bar charts. So here you go. You kind of can see it kind of is just now sitting in the background, adds an extra thing to the visual of the whole graph, makes it a lot better, I think. Obviously, you don't have to include this, but in my opinion, makes it much better. So this next thing is the outside of the plot. I'll change it to red just so you can see it. I made it the same color. So that's the whole plot. It just outlines it. I made it the same color as what my background would be, just so it's more uniform, but obviously you can play around with it. I'll make this red again so it stands out. Now these are the lines in between each bar. Once again, you can change this, play with the background after, but just kind of how I have it set up. So play around with that. And then okay, so then geom label. So this geom label will refer back to what we created the label as. So if you change this, the geom label will change, but we want the percentile, so that's what we'll use. Gray 20 color is the text in the outline of the box. The fill is the old lace yellowish color. Size of the text, I'm gonna make it bold, the text family. And then this show legend, just make sure it's false because that will affect how the legend pops up later, which just stick with what I got. So there we go. There's the text. So that's pretty much our plot. Now, oh, we got to add the scale fill manual. So we're going to manually tell the plot which values we want. So you will need as many colors as your type has in the data frame. So we have 3 different types. So we need 3 different colors. So we go scale fill manual values equal C. So the collection of 3 different colors, which we created up here. Color 1, color 2, color 3. So once we run that, it will look a lot better. Excuse me. So there we go. Looks really nice. So that's basically our plot. Now what we're going to do from here is kind of clean it up through the themes, switch the position of the legend, sorry, add the title, add the subtitle. I've already kind of gone through most of the theme stuff I do in my original tutorial, so I don't want to make this one too long. So yeah, in here we'll just go legend position top, so that'll be at the top of the plot. Make it horizontal. It's vertical right now. We'll get it this way. I mean, you guys, I have this code will be in there. You can kind of play around with it. So I'll kind of just leave it at that. I'm going to run it all to show you what we get. Yeah, so the way it renders in R sometimes looks a little bit odd. You can kind of see how it's squished. The best thing what I do is I usually save it right after, like I run through different variations of the plot. So like if it's a rough draft, I'll save it, see what it looks like once it's saved, and go from there. So as I said, you can change all the titles, the subtitles, and then so this is the gigi save, what you call it, height equals 6, width equals 6. So we want it as a equal square plot, and then DPI, which is the resolution, equals retina. That's the highest you can save as a PNG file. So there we go. We saved the mount polar. There we go. Obviously, here we can see it's much more equally spaced in between each bar. And yeah, I think it looks great from here. Hopefully I covered that pretty well in the data collection part of it. Like I said, I've still got to cover the NBA part, so we'll jump into that. Like I said, I'll also say my Twitter, I'll plug it. My DMs are always open. If you need help with anything, for sure, just let me know. So we'll close up the soccer one, head over to the basketball. So basketball is a bit trickier. I'm going to create it manually because there's nothing like the football reference scouting reports out there for basketball, unless you have like a data set and you want to create your own percentile rankings. You can make that fit into what I'm doing. But I'm going to show you how to do it manually. So you can pretty much gives you freedom to do anything. You can just create your own data sets. Obviously, you don't want to create fake data and put it out there, but you can practice with it. Type in data from websites that you find fit. But yeah, we'll get into it. So first, I'm just going to create the index 1 through 12. I'll use 12 again. And then we're going to create our first column, which is the stat, each stat. I typed in each one. Obviously, you can change all of these. So that will create your stat character list. And then we'll create our values, which will be the percentiles. So I just made these up. So now we have our index, our statistic, and our percentile values. And then we're going to bind each column together. So you have three columns, bind it into one data frame. So C bind, which is column bind, type in the three lists that you have, and then put that inside of as.dataframe because we're going to create as a data frame, and then put that back into a data, call it data. That's what I call it, call it whatever. But here we go. Data is now created. As you can see, we got our index. Like I said earlier, we need that because we want to visually display it in the order we created it, have all the values. So these aren't LeBron's values. He's much higher than probably most of these. But yeah, so we're going to do the same thing that we did in the soccer one. You're going to have scoring, possession, defending. So scoring is different instead of attacking, which is used much more in soccer. So same code. Like I said, if you have less or more than 12, you just have to fix these to match your data set. So data, scoring, possession. Got it all set up. Don't want to get too much into this, as I already explained. I don't want to make it longer than it needs because I know it's hard to follow once it's longer. And then when we create as a data frame, sometimes R doesn't identify some columns as numeric. So you might run into that issue, but the index and the value we want as numeric so they plot correctly. So this function is you just take data $index, so you're calling that column and putting that inside the as numeric function, creates that as a numeric. That whole column is now a numeric, each is numeric value, sorry. And then we'll put that back into the column. So it will override it. And it won't change anything in the data. It's just how it's rendered in the console. And then here we go. This is the same one. Like I said earlier, just run this. Oh, I'll talk about it in this one actually. So this is the angle stuff. Yeah, so the plotting is the same exact thing, just some of the things will be labeled different, like this is stat instead of percentile, as in the soccer one. The data is called data instead of player data frame, and then the colors are different. So yeah, the final thing we have for the angle of the text is called ANG for angle. Forgot to mention this in the soccer one, but what you're going to do is under theme, so where we customize the plot, we have the axis text of the X. So I'll plot the bar chart just to show you, talk through it. So we have the percent or the statistics on the X-axis. So technically, once it gets wrapped, it's the X-axis text. So we want to distort or kind of flip the angle for each one based on where it's wrapped on the polar coordinates. So the axis text X equals element text. So we want to customize the text of it. We'll make it bold, the size, obviously you can play with all this. But then the angle, so you can change the angle. I'll run it and say everyone will make it. I'll show you how it is if you just make everything 45 degrees. So it's uniform, doesn't look great, obviously. But when you change it to the ANG, which that piece of code up top, which, like I said, I don't know everything that it does, but it does work. So when you run it again, it will now wrap around polar coordinates, which is perfect. Okay. So I did miss one thing. I deleted it earlier. I didn't know if I did it. So let me. Okay, I will edit this. I'll come back. Okay, I'm back. As you can see, we had a little error. So the scoring plot's first, but the legend doesn't respond to that. So just something, I had it added, I took it out. I didn't think it would, of course, man. There we go. So this little piece of code will make the, we'll take this column as factors and then create as a level, so that it'll basically say the scoring is a piece, a factor level possession. So it'll break it up in the way R reads it. So nothing will change in the data set, but it's just an important thing to run. So back when we run it again, there we go. So scoring is now the first one, which we needed. And it obviously switches the colors around again. I added it to the soccer one. I believe the soccer one plotted correctly, but let's check it again. Yeah, so the blue, gray, yellow, gold. So this kind of wraps up everything. Like I said, always my Twitter DMs are open. We'll help whoever needs help. We'd love to do so. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. These are some of my favorite plots to make, just visually and kind of customizing them and making them look cool. And obviously the data they can represent is really cool. Shout out to Jason again for the worldfootballR package. It's fantastic, and the amount of data you can access to it is just unbelievable. So go check that out for sure. I'll link it below, and then I will plug a little bit below. My guy on Twitter, John a blank. I'm sorry, man, but he created a similar polar plot. It happened to be very similar to mine. I didn't even know, and that's why I got the theme, the angle manipulation for the text around the plot. So mine was what I was doing earlier was a lot less concise. So I was doing it, but a different way, and I now use his, which is much better. So I'll link his tutorial below also in his Twitter page. So yeah, I think this wraps it up, and stay on the lookout for a couple more tutorials coming. I'm going to do some more plots and then hopefully get a series of just basics in R tutorial out. So as always, follow me on Twitter. Feel free to reach out, and I'll see you guys next time.